Hi folks, welcome to Talk with Bonsai. I am very amateur. I've been playing around with plants and bonsai for a while, and now I'm making this YouTube channel in order to document better and share my progress with the hope that I'll get feedback. Good feedback, bad feedback. I know I don't get to choose between polite and rude feedback, but I'm quite certain I'll get feedback that I need and feedback that I want that maybe I didn't need. So I'm going to give it a shot. Because I don't have any professional equipment, forgive the audio quality, you're not worried about that. I'll start off with short episodes to start to go through the plants before I start working on them, and kind of play around with things. If it turns out later I change where I film, then that's just because my cat was on the counter while I was trying to film. Nina, come here, get off the counter. What a stink. I'm not cutting this either. Here, go. No, it's not the time. Eat some food. All right, she's gonna crunch on her food, so we'll hear that too. All right, I'm gonna start left to right. So this is the first one. It's not easy to see, but I like the movement it's got there. This is a hardy, prolific kiwi, the self-pollinating version from Home Depot. It was expensive for what it was. It's not an uncommon plant. I think they were $11 US dollars at Home Depot, or maybe Lowe's. But I love the way it looked. I've always wanted to have one to play around with, whether it be for fruit or if it be for bonsai. This one was budding out. It was just roots, almost bare roots, stuffed on top of some loose mulch, pine bark and the like, and a bag, which I've still got somewhere. That wasn't what drew me to it. There were a couple green buds sticking out, which now you can see are more, because they're just sold as sticks and bag with some roots attached. So because I saw that, I said, maybe there's hope for this one. And I would like to think it's on its way to becoming a respectable plant. It hasn't died. I haven't killed it. I did put it in bonsai soil, which is a mix of like super fine and smaller grit. I did get some bonsai soil that was disappointingly fine, from some brand that I'd gotten before, but somehow the place nearest to me that sells it on the shelves bought a lot of super fine, so it's almost sand. So this is very densely packed, there's not a whole lot of moving around, and it holds the moisture quite well. I think that's good. On the packaging it said to keep this moist while it's establishing. I would say it's still establishing. Nothing has become woody or corked up that's new growth. Some of the old growth seems to have died back. And so far I think I've kept it pest free. I don't know what's good for this plant. I don't know how it's supposed to grow. So I'm just giving it a shot. But I'm happy. I'm very happy so far. So that's my first one, my hardy kiwi. No work on it today. It was potted less than a month ago. All this growth, inches of growth, almost 3 inches in some places in less than a month. So there's nothing to be done on it yet. I'm hoping it'll do well through the summer. And then maybe I'll prune it again at the end of fall if it hasn't grown too out of control. If it does get too out of control, of course, I'll prune it up. But that's number one, the hardy kiwi. Number two, and this isn't the best example, but it's the example I chose. This is a coffee, Arabica coffee. It does have one crazy root coming out here, and you can see when I shake it, it shakes the whole plant, so it's connected, unfortunately. Again, I just kind of wanted one. I like coffee. I love the taste of coffee. Sometimes gives me the jitters, so I don't drink a lot of it. I drink a lot of tea. But this one, and it came in a little thing with several others. I got it for, I think, $1 from a grocery store, Harris Teeter. So it was much more expensive before that, but it was on the clearance produce rack, and for $1 or $2.50 to get 9 coffee trees is pretty good. This one's been growing for about a year. I let it grow up tall and cut it down. Even though it's very thin, it grows very tall without being very thick. So this one's branching out. These are very old leaves that I left on there. I haven't tried coffee before, but it's tropical. And I don't have tropical here, so I'm assuming that I can keep it alive, but I've got to be careful about how much abuse I give it. I already did cut it down to, I think, 4 leaf sets, and I'm going to have to select alternating branches when it comes down to it. So I'll cut off this side, let this side grow on the bottom, cut off this side, let this side grow on the other side, and so on and so forth up the trunk. But I'm very pleased with it. This is not my thickest one, it's not my prettiest one, but I think it's representative of the group as a whole. And rather than showing you, you okay, Nina? I think you know what she just did. You could probably hear it. Yeah, there's my coffee, Arabica coffee plant, tree. One day I hope these all to be trees. I don't have a way to say. This one's a little more familiar to a lot of people, willow leaf ficus. I repotted it because the soil was staying very wet on top, but I didn't see the tree drying out. And I think I watered it once every couple days just to make sure it had water in it. Now I am seeing the water drain nicely. It does have some funky roots. There's a nice wide swell at the bottom, but I think you can see there's one right here. It kind of crosses over. It was much worse before. I actually cut one off up here that was going over this direction. It has an old scar that's healing up here, a weird bulge where I believe it was kind of being trained as a broom style. And then it had a scar here that was just bulbous. So I cut it down with some concave cutters, and I'm just gonna let it grow and see if it can heal that. It was also really bushy when I got it. It was all the way out here and here and there and there. And it was wired. I took the wire off because I don't think it did anything. It really looks the same. I did bend this branch down, which was the leader. I'm hoping to abandon it. It's okay with bifurcation up there, but I think I'm trying to get all the leaves closer in, all of the branches closer in, and I know that I need to let it grow. But like this branch, for example, I cut the end off because it was all the way out here. None of this growth was even there. I cut it off here, and these came in. I cut it a little farther, and then I cut it again, and I just got these 2, which is disappointing. I want to have it close so I can start some taper on it, and that's really what my problem was. Up here, there's not really any taper. No taper. There was no taper anywhere. It was just really leggy, and even this is extremely straight. I don't like that. So I'm hoping I can get some branches back budding off the trunk, and I can pull them out and start to work on that as well. I would love to get branches farther down here, but so far I haven't had anything. There are old spots where there used to be branches, so I'm hoping they bud out. But yeah, it had needed to be repotted. It was in a much larger pot that didn't need, and the roots really needed to be worked on. So my goal is to keep it in about this size container, continue to work on it. I think it's deep. It's just a PVC cap, but other than being deep, it's a good size container, and it's very ugly, of course, but it's a good size container. Not a very thick trunk, but I know it'll thicken up because willow leaf do thicken up a lot. Again, willow leaf ficus, and yeah, just one. I saw it it's from a bonsai nursery. It was in a regular, garden nursery, and I kept seeing it and saying that thing needs some help. They had much prettier trees, but I knew it needed help. I'd actually purchased a $4 willow leaf before that was much smaller. Again, we're having a visit from the cat. Hi, Nina. She's very interested in plants. She tends not to chew on them. She just sniffs them. But sometimes she chews on them. Hi. I know, you're very cute, but you're in the way. Can I ask you to buzz off? I'll see you in a little bit, okay? Good girl. All right, she's gonna keep crunching. Another ficus, a less common one that's pleased and disappointed me all at once. A Ficus triangularis variegated triangle ficus. I love them. I saw one on the internet, and I thought it was a great, pretty leaf, small. I mean, these haven't been reduced as far as I know, although this was directly from a bonsai nursery, me hands, and it was barely even raw stock. I think they'd intended to, it was a rooted cutting clearly, but I think they'd intended to let it develop before they tried to pot it up and trim it up as a bonsai. But I saw it sitting off to the side and said, hey, can I buy this? They said, yeah, because I believe these grow relatively quickly. I mean, they had many larger ones that were the same price as what I paid for this, but I liked the way this one looked, and I liked that I could start at a size where I could get good taper, which has been a struggle. So I tried to make a video trimming this one up, and what I'd done is I'd trimmed the top off of here and left this so I had some green with the hopes I get a lot of back budding here, and I did. I got an immense amount of back budding. All of these are little buds. On this other side, I'd cut back to 3 branches, and of course that top branch had died back, but these 2 have exploded with growth. They're doing great. They're not just still growing, they're back budding, and the trunk itself appears to be back budding. Now, I do like this little kick up here, partially because I think it's mostly healed. Nah, not quite. I need to work on that for healing, but that's okay. The roots were like this when I got it. I did put it into this container with pure bonsai soil and some more fertilizer. I didn't trim them. They just dropped right in because it's in a very small, almost a little bit smaller than this. And it just dropped right in. So I'm trying to work to make this into a very normal looking bonsai. I would love to have this develop, grow, and thicken up and work on this taper some. So I'm going to leave this until one of these starts to emerge as a very prominent branch. But I expect to have to heal over a scar almost this size or larger on this side to get the taper I want, to get the size I want to catch up to this branch. I don't want any budding down lower than that, and I would love to get all kinds of bifurcation. The one issue I have with this particular is that all of my buds are left and right on this side, and it becomes very two-dimensional if I was to do that. I would love to have a bud coming this way, because right now I don't have anything coming out into this area, and all of this could go any direction. I've really got one up here, and that'll be fine, but it's funny to have that proportion for this to that. And I do really like this. Now, as it gets thicker, I might find that more acceptable, but this may just look like part of the trunk. I'm hoping it thickens up a little bit better. And of course, I want the trunk to thicken up. Again, this one is only a little bit in development, if in development could be called that. So as it grows, I'll work on it some more. It is not going to be due for repotting again until next spring, not this spring, next spring. It's just going to grow this way for a while. So it's getting lots of water, sucking it all up. It's creating beautiful leaves. I love these leaves, and I'm really excited to work with it. So another variegated. This is, I believe, the Benjamina, and this is again from a garden nursery, but it was pre-bonsai stock from a bonsai nursery. It is wired. I did this. I'm not proud of it for 2 reasons. One, it's been on here too long. It's bitten. Also, I don't think I ever loved the shape of this. It was very leggy again. I'd had it wired out and like crazy. So I started working on ramification, on cutting the branches back, letting the taper start to set in, and I'm not terribly pleased. This I had marked with just like a twisty tie. It's not even a piece of wire. Because I want to try to grow this up as the leader. One of these was originally leader, but there's no taper in this. I am tempted to make this the new leader and just cut it off right here. But I don't know. I could even cut it off lower, cut it off here and use this, because there really isn't much taper. The roots aren't terrible, they're not amazing. This is a rather large pot for presentation, but for the roots that are in here, it fit really nicely. And I didn't want to trim too much. I don't think I trimmed at all, actually. And I wanted to make more room I don't have a lot of room for plants, so to have more plants, I do things like that. So yeah, I think it needs a lot more. I don't mind all these big branches, but this one's really got to work to catch up. And because it's winter and all my plants are right next to each other, I had spider mites on probably the willow leaf ficus, and they spread to this. So this is the next one to be treated. I can see them now that I'm holding it up in the air, but they're right next to each other, like this. So that's why that happened. Again, little leaf ficus. Don't know how old any of these trees are, other than the coffee trees I assume are about a year old. All right, and this is kind of a funky planting. Again, it's not in this container for presentation. It's smaller, I think, than any of the other trees, except for the seedlings here. This is an orange jasmine, I believe, and it was tall, skinny, no taper to it hardly at all. I'm working on taper, and yes, it is wired. I have been cutting it back to try to get more of a tree form out of it, even though it's not a tree in nature, I don't think. Sorry, it's not a tree in nature, I don't think. I think this is a cutting off of it. I just tucked it in there and see what would happen. And this is a cutting off of a Texas ebony. But again, I just tucked in there to see what would happen. The roots do really fill this container, which is why I wanted it to be wide. It's not really a container, it's a saucer. I want it to be wide to give it space to grow, but I did not want to make it too deep to have it start developing very vertical roots. It has some funky roots over here that I actually had zip tied to the trunk below the soil line here, and I try to use this wire to hold them in, but as it's grown, it has pushed that wire out of the way. So that was a failure, but those will probably have to be dealt with depending on how the roots look. Again, next spring, not in a couple months, next spring when I repot this. I will probably try to let it grow, see how these lower branches do, if I can do some directional pruning on those, and then chop it off, because I really like the look of a tree that's been developed with intent from a smaller size, with exceptions, of course. This is one of those exceptions. This is one that was a rescue, even though it didn't need much rescue. It's not ugly by everyone's standards, but my standards were it needed a rescue, so I rescued it. All right, this one was definitely not a rescue. It's kind of hard to look at from that perspective because you see that big scar. You can see it's got all these aerial roots that were trying to pop out when I got it. They've dried out because I don't have a humid enough an environment like a greenhouse would be, but that's okay. It's actually poking new ones up here, and down at the bottom, I have it seen in a tray of very fine sand. It also has a root coming out the bottom, so I'm not sure which side is going to be the front. I will probably repot it at some point. It did come in this pot. I love this pot. I think it's fantastic. I don't think it's perfect for this tree, but it really is a nice size and shape. I think, and again, this is from Meehan's in Maryland. I think it is she was saying they were all Chinese-made pots, but it's unglazed on the inside. It's, big, good drainage hole. I would love to reuse it for a different bonsai. I don't know how long this one's been in it, but it's been growing nicely since it's been in my home. Yes, these roots didn't make it, but I don't need aerial roots like that. Roots popping up out of the soil. So I will probably repot this in the spring, as long as all this growth stays strong. This is a Ficus dayvi. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Hi, Nina. Thank you. You're very good at this. Can I ask for a little bit more time? Huh? I'm almost done. I've got one tree left. Come on down. You come on my lap. Oh my God, you're such a stinker. Here, out of the way. Thank you. All right, that's my assistant. Yeah, she's just making sure I was remembering everything. So yeah, this one I've only had for a couple months, but I can tell it may not be root bound, but it'll probably need repotting this spring. And the last one, which will probably not be repotted for a couple of years, is this guy, Buddha style Ficus ginseng, which isn't a real ficus, I guess. This is one of those giant bulbous ones. It came in a round pot with no drainage holes, glued in. It appears to be grafted. It's got all kinds of ugly branches and scars, and it's only got one weird aerial root. I had tried air layering this and it didn't respond well. I don't know why. I can imagine I did things wrong, but I've done more than a couple of air layers and they've been successful. But I don't mind the general branch. The general branch splay on this, and even though it's not great as a bonsai traditionally, I think it can be made into a decent, I almost want to put it this way to look at, and it could have a decent shape to it. It could look fun. I'd have fun looking at it without following all the rules. So this is kind of my rebellious bonsai. It's a bonsai nobody wants, and I'm kind of throwing all the rules out the window. It's been through some weird stuff. It's got weird leaves. I don't think it's even had any pests, which is pretty good considering it's right next to two other ones that have pests. I did pot it into this pot after just hacking it off and putting it into a deeper container for a while. When I started to see enough roots popping up out of the top of the soil, I said, all right, it's time to put this thing in its own pot. I probably did dry out one of those aerial roots that came out, but it came out straight up. So that's okay, I'll cut that off anyways. But yeah, I just really like it. I'm not huge on ficuses. I'm learning to love them more because I like things that I can eat or are extremely pretty. And ficuses can be pretty, but I don't know that they're as pretty when they're in this form as they would be in like a green and white and yellow and all the different colors that other plants can have. I'd much rather have something like this in this shape, but I'm kind of playing with it all. Again, this one just got repotted. It was a recent chop, so I'm just gonna let it grow, let things thicken up. I will probably have to do some branch selection, but I'd love to keep it small like this, kind of I think they call it a sumo style ficus ginseng. It's got that really fat base. I mean, it's probably 3 inches wide and 2 inches deep, but it needs a lot of root work. It needs a lot of roots to come out. The soil is damp right now. It's not terribly wet, it's damp, but I'm hoping this one will make it. Yeah. So that's, I think that's 8 of my bonsais. Some of these have wire on them. I think they're the only ones that have wire, in all honesty. I had wired them to try to put movement in them. I won't say I regret that, but I think I'd rather put in movement a different way, or have selected trees that already have some movement. Some of these have great roots, some of them do not. I have dozens, more than 100 other plants to be shown, but I will have to do them a couple at a time to make sure my videos don't go too long. Again, any criticism, any ideas. I don't know everything about even the plants that I have in front of me. You might be able to tell me something I don't. I do know that this one has spider mites on it. Not a lot, just started. So I'm going to have to address that, which is easy, of course. But yeah, give me any feedback you can. Give me your attention for a little bit. You don't have to like and follow, but look out for another video in, let's say, a week. I don't know how satisfied I'll be with this one, or if I'll make another one anytime soon. Yeah, keep an eye out for another video and give it a watch. If I'm too monotone or if I'm boring, let me know. If you think you need to see more of Nina, and I have a dog too. They all kind of made some noise while I was videoing, and Nina made her own appearance. She's a very pretty little tabby. Just let me know. But I'm going to spend some time with them. Thanks for watching.